What if I told you that the car you drive isn't just a machine, but the result of a century-long propaganda campaign that turned an entire nation into the world's most obsessive car culture? Before we dive into this rabbit hole, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to discover will change how you see every German car on the road forever. Hey, this is Mark, and you're welcome to AUTOSAYS. Picture this, it's 1886, and a German engineer named Karl Benz just fired up the world's first true automobile in Mannheim. But here's the thing nobody tells you, Germany didn't care. Yeah, you heard that right. The country that would become synonymous with automotive excellence actually thought cars were a stupid idea at first. The government refused to build proper roads, people threw stones at these noisy contraptions, and Benz was basically laughed out of town. So how did Germany go from hating cars to building an entire national identity around them? The answer is darker and more calculated than you think, and it involves economic manipulation, political propaganda, and one of history's most disturbing figures using the automobile as a tool for something far more sinister. But let's rewind for a second, because you need to understand just how broke and desperate Germany was after World War I. We're talking about a country where people were burning money in their fireplaces because it was cheaper than buying firewood. A loaf of bread cost billions of marks. Billions! The Treaty of Versailles had basically kneecapped the entire German economy, and the national psyche was shattered. Enter the industrialists, the Krupps, the Siemens family, and yes, the emerging automotive pioneers who saw an opportunity in the chaos. See, while France had Peugeot and Renault, and America had Ford churning out Model Ts like hotcakes, German car manufacturers were stuck making luxury vehicles that nobody could afford. But these industrialists weren't stupid. They realized something powerful. If they could tie the automobile to German pride, to the idea of German engineering superiority and national resurrection, they could create a market and a movement at the same time. This is where it gets really interesting, and honestly kind of creepy. By the late 1920s, companies like Daimler and BMW weren't just selling cars anymore, they were selling a vision of German excellence. Their advertising didn't focus on transportation, it focused on precision, on the superiority of German engineering, on the idea that owning one of their vehicles meant you were part of something greater. Wait, does this sound familiar? Because this is basically the same playbook every luxury car brand uses today, except back then it wasn't just marketing, it was rebuilding a national identity 1 horsepower at a time. Now here's where things take a seriously dark turn, and I need you to pay attention because this part gets conveniently left out of most automotive history books. When Hitler came to power in 1933, he understood something that previous leaders had missed. The automobile wasn't just a product, it was a symbol of modernity, power, and most importantly, it could unite a fragmented population under a single vision. Within months of taking power, he announced the construction of the Autobahn, a massive highway network that would become the envy of the world. But ask yourself this, why would a country still recovering from economic devastation spend enormous resources on highways when most citizens couldn't even afford bicycles? Because it was never really about the roads. The Autobahn project did something genius and terrifying. It put hundreds of thousands of unemployed Germans back to work. It demonstrated technological might to the rest of the world, and it created the infrastructure necessary for the coming war machine. But the public story was different. The public story was about freedom, about every German family being able to afford a car and drive across their beautiful country on these magnificent roads. Sound inspiring? It was designed to be. And here's the kicker. Ferdinand Porsche was brought in to design the people's car, the Volkswagen, which was supposed to be affordable enough for every German worker. Families were told to save 5 marks a week through a state savings program, and eventually they'd get their car. Spoiler alert, World War II started before most people got their vehicles, and those factories, yeah, they started building military vehicles instead. Hundreds of thousands of Germans had paid into a system that never delivered, but by then the psychological conditioning was complete. The car wasn't just a vehicle anymore, it was a birthright, a promise of prosperity, a symbol of national strength. Fast forward through the rubble of World War II, and Germany is destroyed again. But something fascinating happens. The obsession with cars doesn't die, it intensifies. The Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle of the 1950s, is built partially on the back of the automotive industry. Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Porsche, these companies don't just rebuild, they dominate. But why? Because the psychological foundation had already been laid. 3 generations of Germans had been told that automotive excellence was part of their DNA, that engineering precision was a national characteristic, that the car was more than transportation, it was identity. And here's what blows my mind. It worked so well that the rest of the world bought into it too. Today, when you think German car, what comes to mind? Precision, quality, engineering excellence, luxury, performance. You're willing to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more for a German badge than a comparable Japanese or American vehicle. Why? Because you've been sold the same story that was crafted almost a century ago. The German automotive industry didn't just build great cars, they built a mythology so powerful that it transcended borders and generations. They turned a marketing strategy into cultural truth. Think about how wild that is for a second. The country that initially rejected automobiles became so identified with them that today their entire economy depends on the automotive sector. Over 800,000 Germans work directly in car manufacturing, and millions more in related industries. The car isn't just part of German culture, it is German culture. And here's the urgency you need to understand right now. This entire system is on the verge of collapse. The shift to electric vehicles is threatening to destroy everything that made German automotive dominance possible. Tesla, an American company that didn't exist 20 years ago, is valued higher than Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes combined. Chinese EV manufacturers are producing vehicles faster and cheaper than German companies can adapt. The very thing that built German national identity for over a century is facing an existential crisis, and the psychological impact on the country is something we're only beginning to see. The next decade will determine whether Germany can reinvent its automotive identity or whether the obsession that defined them for generations becomes their downfall. So, the next time you see a BMW or a Mercedes or a Porsche, remember, you're not just looking at a car, you're looking at the end result of a century-long campaign that turned industrial products into national mythology. And that mythology? It's powerful enough that you probably still believe it, even after everything I just told you. If this story fascinated you even half as much as it did me, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started uncovering the hidden forces that shape the automotive world. I'm Mark, and I'll see you in the next one.